Good morning, dear children. Today we are going to start a new chapter of history, the fourth chapter, Mughal Empire. Moving to the chapter, ruling a large territory as the Indian subcontinent, involving such a diversity of people and cultures, was an extremely difficult task to accomplish in Middle Ages. However, in contrast to their predecessors, the Mughal created an empire and accomplished what had before seemed possible for only short periods of time. From the later half of the 16th century, they expanded their kingdom from Agra and Delhi, going on to the control nearly all of the subcontinent in 17th century. They imposed structures of administration and ideas of governance that outlasted their rule. It left a political legacy which succeeded rules the subcontinent could not ignore. These concepts are discussing in this chapter. Let's go into the chapter. Who were Mughals? Descendants of two great lineages of rulers, Genghis Khan, the Mughal ruler who ruled over parts of China and Central Asia from mother's side, successors of Timur, the ruler of Iran, Iraq, and modern Turkey from father's side. Mughal did not like to be called Mughal or Mongol as Genghis Khan's memory was associated with the massacre of innumerable people. It was also linked with Uzbeks, their Mongol competitors. They were proud of their Timurid ancestry because their great ancestor had captured Delhi in 1390. Mughal military campaigns. Babur, the first Mughal emperor, succeeded the throne of Ferghana in 1494 when only 12 years old, forced to leave his ancestral throne due to invasion of another Mongol group. The Uzbeks seized Kabul in 1504. In 1526, defeated the Sultan of Delhi, Ibrahim Lodi, at Panipat, captured Delhi and Agra. Mughal traditions of succession did not believe in the rule of primo- primogeniture, where the eldest son inherited with father's estate, followed the Mughal and Trimoid customs of coprecentrary inheritance, a division of inheritance amongst all the sons. Mughal relations with other rulers. Mughal rulers campaigned constantly against rulers who refused to accept their authority. However, as they became powerful, many rulers like Rajputs joined them voluntarily. Many of the Rajputs married their daughter into Mughal families and received high positions. Many resisted as well. For example, Sisodia Rajput of Mewar refused to accept Mughal authority. However, upon defeat, they were honorably treated by Mughals, given their lands back as assignments. This careful balance between defeating but not humiliating their opponents enabled the Mughals to extend their influence over many kings and chieftains. However, it was difficult to keep this balance all the time. Mansabdars and Jagirdars. Empire expanded into include different regions. Mughal recruited diverse bodies of people from Turkish nobles. They went out to include Iranians, Indian Muslims, Afghans, Rajputs, Marathas, and other groups. Some joined Mughal service as Mansabdars. Term refers to an individual who holds a manab, meaning a position or rank. Grading system used by Mughals to rate rank, salary, military responsibilities. Rank and salary determined by numerical value, such higher and Sat, The more prestigious the noble's position in court and larger his salary, Mansabdal's military responsibilities require him to maintain specific number of zawar or cavalrymen. Cavalrymen were reviewed, registered, and their houses branded before the Mansabdar received the money to pay them as salary. Mansabdar's salary were revenue assignments called jagars. Somewhat like Iktas, however, unlike Muktis, most Mansabdars did not administer their jagars. Mansabdars only had right to revenue of their assignments collected from them by their servants while they themselves served in another part of the country. During Akbar's region, Jagirs was assessed so that their revenues were roughly same as the salary of the Mansabdar. However, things changed by Aurangzeb's rule during this time. Actual revenue collected was often less than the granted sum. The number of mansabdars also increased, thus leading to a long wait before they receive a jagir. These and other factors led the shortage in number of jagirs. Jagirdars tried to get as much revenue as possible while they had a jagir. Aurangzeb, unable to control these developments during the end of his region, peasantry suffered. Sabt and Zamindars. The main source of income for Mughal rulers, tax on the produce of peasantry. Some of these taxes were paid by the peasants via rural elites like the headmen or local chieftains, termed as zamindars by Mughals. Todar Mal, Akbar's revenue minister, took a careful survey of the crop yields, prices, and area cultivated for a 10-year period. Based on this data, the tax was fixed on each crop in cash. Every province was divided into revenue circles with its own schedule of revenue rates for the individual crops revenue system called sub, prevalent in areas where Mughal administrators could survey the land and keep very careful accounts, not possible in provinces like Gujarat, Bengal. In some areas, the zamindars exercised more power. Exploitations by Mughal administrators could lead them to rebellion at times. Zamindars and peasants of the same caste also allied in rebelling against Mughal authority. The peasant revolts challenged the stability of Mughal empire from the end of 17th century. A closer look at Akbar's policies. The administration laid down by Akbar, elaborately discussed by Abul Fazl in book Akbarnama. In its last volume, Ain-i-Akbari, empire was divided into provinces called Subas, governed by a Subadar who carried out both political and military functions. Every province had a financial officer or Diwan. Subadar was supported by other officers such as the military paymaster, the ministers in charge of religion and charitable patronage, military commanders, and the town police commanders. In order to maintain peace and order to the provinces of Akbar's noble commanded large armies had access to large amount of revenue when they were loyal and empire functioned efficiently by the end of 17th century. Many nobles had independent network loyalties to the empire weakened by self-interest. Akbar, when the Fatehpur Sikri during the 50s-70s started discussions on the religion with the ulama, Brahmanas, Jesuit priests, and who were the Roman Catholics, and Zoroastrians discussions took place in Ibadat Khana. Akbar's interaction with people of different faith made him realize that religious scholars who emphasized ritual and dogma when often bigots their teaching creative divisions and disharmony amongst the subjects. the Mughal Empire in the 17th century and after. The administrative and military efficiency led to great economic and commercial prosperity. International travels describe at its flexible land wealth state of poverty also existed side by side with the greatest opulence inequalities were glaring documents from 20th year of Shah Jahan's region show that the highest ranking Mansabdars were only 445 in numbers out of a total of 8,000 amounts of a meter. 5.6% of the total number of Mansabdars received 61.5% of the total estimated revenue of the empire as salaries from themselves, and their troopers spent a great deal for the income and salaries and goods. Merchants and bankers profited in this economic world. Enormous wealth and resources commanded by Mughal elite made them extremely powerful in the late 17th century. As the authority of the Mughal emperor declined, his servants emerged as a powerful centers of powers in this region, constituting new dynasties and holding commands of provinces like Hyderabad and Awadh. They continued to recognize the Mughal emperor in Delhi as their master by the 18th century. The provinces of the empire consolidated their independent political entities. Here comes to the end of this chapter. I know it is a bit difficult chapter to understand, so we can discuss more in our online session. Thank you, children.